Nah. Ooh, yeah. Nah. Metroid, a series from the beginning of time, also known as the 80s. It's a series that may not have the popularity of other Nintendo games, but has a large and devoted fanbase. The last original 2D Metroid was Metroid Fusion in 2002. And aside from 2 remakes, we haven't seen a new traditional Metroid game since.
So let's look back on the franchise and see why so many people want Samus to return to her 2D roots.
The first Metroid was released on August 6, 1986 in Japan for the Famicom Disk System, and August 15, 1987 for the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America. During development, the team increased Samus's jump and speed, promoting them to expand the world into a large, expansive labyrinth. This new game design was so unique that Metroid and Castlevania, another game that adopted a similar design in the PS1 era, caused the genre to be called a Metroidvania. This game was also one of the very first to include a female protagonist, shocking players at her reveal at the end of the game. This game was a trailblazer for games of its kind, and I f***ing hate it. Yeah, this game's a no-go nowadays. There's no map, and it's harder than giving birth to a kidney stone. Sure, it's not that good now, but it was the first entry in the series. Almost all big franchises have a mediocre to bad first entry. At the time, this was pretty good. Metroid 2 is very similar to the NES game, but this time with only 4 colors and more genocide. It's even harder than the first game and has way more cramped level designs. But it was impressive to have a game of this scale and caliber on a Game Boy of all things. This brick had the same horsepower as 3 toasters duct taped together. While the first 2 games aren't much to go back to now, they laid the foundation for bigger and better games. Speaking of... Now this game. Woo! This game. With Super Metroid, they took everything that worked about Metroid 1 and 2 and cranked them up to 11. It's fixed the awkward controls, the jank level design, the bullshit difficulty. They made Metroid amazing. This game, while not my favorite Metroid, does so much so right, solidifying the Metroid formula. I'm not the only one who thinks this either. This game is a favorite for completionists and speedrunners alike. In fact, almost every year, Games Done Quick, a speedrunning organization for charity, does a run of Super Metroid. This one's just great. The makers of Wii Sports strike again with another banger of a game. Metroid Fusion, released in 2002 for the Game Boy Advance, is a game very similar to Super Metroid. Although this game is regarded as the most hand-holding Metroid, holding hands with someone is cool as f***, so I love this one. It makes sense for a handheld game. It always tells you where you're supposed to go next, so if you leave the game for a while and pick it up later, you'll know where to go. The sense of isolation and loneliness oozes out of these games. You're a lone bounty hunter in an alien world with no backup. You explore and find things to make yourself more powerful. It's like an alien sci-fi version of Die Hard. It's that feeling of being powerful peeking through the dark clouds of the oppressive and creepy nature of the game that makes Metroid, Metroid. Soon after Fusion, Nintendo released Metroid Prime, a 3D first-person take on Metroid. Although the Prime games take a lot from the 2D entries, they're really their own beast. Later in 2005, we got Metroid Zero Mission on the GBA, a remake of the first Metroid, cleaning up all of the jank and making it just as good as Super and Fusion, proving that even the slightest of upgrades turns a stinker into a great game. Then, nothing. We got Metroid Prime games and a 3D third-person adventure game, Metroid Other M. People f***ing hate this one. Another Metroid Prime game for the DS. Another 2D Metroid was being developed for the Nintendo DS called Metroid Dread, even having an Easter egg in Metroid Prime 3 saying, Metroid Project Dread is nearing completion. Unfortunately, it was cancelled very early in development. Instead, we got Metroid Prime Pinball. Yeah, soon even the Prime series died out. With no mainline Metroid games for 6 years except for a mediocre multiplayer-focused spin-off on the 3DS called Metroid Prime Federation Force, things were looking good for a while with 2 new announcements, Metroid Prime 4 for the Nintendo Switch and Metroid Samus Returns for the 3DS, a remake of Metroid 2. Unfortunately, Samus is a 3DS game released the same year the Switch came out, so it sold like garbage. Now for a message directly to Nintendo. Metroid has a very large fan base. It is financially viable to make a new 2D Metroid game. Just that you never market the games enough or you put them on a dying console. Other Metroidvania games are on the Switch and they sell well, even from smaller indie studios with no marketing ability. You don't need a brand new gimmick. People will be happy with just a new Metroid. People want these games to return. With your company's capabilities, you could make a masterpiece of a game.
Now that I've played every single Metroid game, now what do I play? And I'll just close my eyes and pick one at random. And